This is lesson 2.2, creating drawings from a model. In this lesson you're going to learn how to create drawings from a model. You're going to learn the basics of viewports and sheet layers. We'll learn how to annotate viewports. We'll also learn a trick to quickly create viewports. And we'll learn how to change the model and update the viewports. Let's get started. This is my object from lesson 2.1. So if you've deleted the object or if you haven't saved it and you can't find it, you will have to create it. So go back to lesson 2.1 and learn how to create it. We're going to learn how to make viewports. The idea of a viewport is that a viewport takes a live view, like a live snapshot of your object, and places it in an area that makes it easy to print. I'd like to start by creating my plan view. So I'm going to click on my active view, go to top plan, then go to view on the menu bar and choose create viewport. When we create a viewport, it's important that we name our viewport. Now you can get Vectorworks to automatically name it for you if you like, or if you prefer, you can give it an actual but unique name. I'm going to call it plan viewport. I need to create a sheet layer for this. Design layers are for designing, sheet layers are for printing. So this is going to be a sheet layer called 001 and it is my drawing. And then click OK. We can create a drawing label automatically. So this is my plan view. Now be careful with your spelling and your capitalization because the drawing label will be created with exactly the title that you type in here. So if you make a spelling mistake, it'll be typed in like that. I'd like you to change the scale to 1 to 5, and I'd like you to change the rendering to dashed hidden line. Now there are a lot of options on our viewport dialog box, but I don't want to go into those just at the moment. We'll go into those later when we start talking about creating drawings. Click OK, and there is our drawing on our piece of paper. There it is. I've just used this button at the top here, fit to objects or fit to page area. Either one of those will zoom you in. The difference of course is fit to page area zooms us to our piece of paper, whereas this one, the fit to objects, will zoom us to any selected object. So let's just drag that up to the side here, and that is our plan view. What we need to have now is a front view. Let's go up to our active layer, we'll choose our design layer, and we're going to change our design layer to a front view. So choose front. And you might notice I've gone to a perspective view, which I don't want, orthogonal. And it's also gone to OpenGL. These are some of our preferences that we set in Module 1. I'm going to choose wireframe. And then OK. So fit to objects. I can see everything. View on the menu bar. Create viewport. So this time I need to create a viewport. It's going to be drawing number 2. It's going on the same drawing as before, but I want to give it the name which is my front viewport. Drawing number 2, and this is my front view. Scale 1 to 5. Front, wireframe, and I want dashed hidden line. Click OK, and it puts that dashed hidden line drawing on the same sheet layer as my plan. Click on our fit to page area, and so I've now got this viewport and that viewport, and I really need them to line up. You might remember from Module 1 we learned about the snap cursor. Click, touch a point on here, come down vertically, and when you're happy about the position, let go of your mouse button. And so now I've got a plan view and a front view. And what I'd really like next to this one is a right view. If I drag this viewport across and put my finger on the Option key on a Macintosh or the Control key on a Windows machine, you might see the little plus sign. It's copying. The Shift key will help you to make sure it lines up. So holding down both the Shift and the Option or the Shift and the Control key, let go of your mouse button and it makes a copy. Now the copy is still a front view, so I'm going to go to my Object Info palette, just here where it says the word front, and I'm going to change that to a right view. Just up here, I'm going to double click on that word and call it right view. I've got my third angle projection drawing. The red border that goes around these viewports is really there to tell me that it's time to update these. So let's select those, all three of them. Just up here it says 3 viewports. Make sure it says 3. Click on the update button and it updates those viewports. So there's our plan view, our front view, and our right view. I've got my 3 viewports selected. I'm just going to go back to my selection tool, double click on my selection tool, and that will deselect all my objects. These drawings would probably be better if we put some annotations on them, like dimensions. So I'm going to right click on the first one, edit annotations. Now just before we jump into that, notice that I went to the drawing label. That makes it easy to right click. I can also right click on the line here, but if I go to the middle, I might not actually get my object. So right click, edit annotations, and there's my drawing label. I might want to move that drawing label down, so I can click and I can drag it down a little bit just to move it out of the way. I need some dimensions. So let's go back to our dimension tool. We've already learnt dimensions, so now we can place some dimensions. So click there, we need a dimension there, and we also need a dimension just here. Remember the Z key or the Z key to zoom in. That's really going to help you. And now I'm going to go to my chain dimensioning mode. So remember the Z or the Z key, click, do that again, click there, click, and double click to finish. So if I go back to my zoom tool and I zoom in, you can see there's all my dimensions. Now I'm inside my annotations. You can see I've got an orange border going all the way around my drawing screen, and here's a button just at the top right here, exit my viewport annotation. You have to click on that before you move to the next viewport. Right, click on that viewport, edit annotations. Now just notice my cursor changes shape. It goes from that to that, plus the entire viewport highlights in orange. Right click, edit annotations. So now I'm going to dimension again. Constrain linear dimension tool, so click there, click there. What if I touch that line up there? It means all my dimensions will line up. And then double click to finish. Exit my annotations, right click here, edit annotations. I don't really need dimensions on here because I think I've got enough dimensions, but I'll just put some in anyway. Remember the Z or the Z key if you need it to zoom in, and exit my annotations. So that's a really quick way to create your viewports. I'd like to drag a copy of this. So remember, it's the control key on a Windows machine or the option key on a Macintosh. I'm going to drag that to there. I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to call this my ISO view, or isometric view if you prefer. So isometric view, but it's not an isometric view at the moment, it's a right view. I'm going to change that to a right isometric view and then update. Now it looks a little strange because when I update it, you can see I've got my dimensions still there. Right click, edit annotations, and let's get rid of those annotations. So I can select all those and delete them, and I can move this label down, touch one that's already there, and exit my annotations. So there's my front, right, and my isometric view. One of the things that might help my drawing is to place a title block. I could use my title block border. I can double click to place a title block, and I can choose a pre-made title block. So I can just choose one of these custom ones, maybe my custom title, click on select, and OK, and it puts that title block in there. If you don't like that title block, you can always go back to my custom title block and you can replace it with a simpler one. we'll choose that one. Select and OK. And so that's a very simple title block. So I've now got my title block border on my drawing, and I'd like to edit it. Now later on in the course we're going to learn a lot of detail about this, so just for now we're going to change the style to an unstyled title block, and that will allow us to change the title block border settings and make these quite small. 0.1 of an inch. There it is. So we've got a very skinny border going around. If I go back to that, I can choose to hide the border. And so there it is. It's a simple border. If I look at my title block border settings again, I can put in the sheet data. Here's the sheet data here, drawing. So it's actually picked up the name of the sheet layer and it's picked up the sheet number. So those are automatically filled in for you. This looks like it's in the way, so I'm just going to move that up out of the way and leave it there. So it might look like we've gone to quite a lot of trouble to get our title block and our drawing and our model created. Why didn't we just draw that, as 2D information? Wouldn't it have been just as quick? Well, the answer is no, it wouldn't. And even if it was just as quick, here's something that will not be as quick. Let's go back to our active layer button and we'll choose our design layer. This takes us back to our design. Let's fit to objects, and there it is there. I'm just going to go up here to my active view and choose right isometric. So there we are, there's a right isometric view. In our 3D modeling toolset, which is just down here, we have a tool called Fillet Edge. That's this one here. So I've got a fillet edge at the moment of 1 inch. I can select that edge, that edge, that edge, and that edge. And when I hit the enter key, it'll fillet those edges for me. So what's the point of doing that? Well, let's go back and have a look at our drawing. I'm just going to go fit to page area. Now you might notice the plan is updated, but nothing else has. View on the menu bar, update all viewports. Notice how quickly all of my viewports have updated. What this means is that as I make changes to my model, my drawing will update automatically. This is a huge increase in your productivity because you don't have to redraw everything. All you have to do is to change the model. And when you change the model, it updates the drawings. You may have heard people talk about building information modeling. This is an introduction to that concept. The idea that we model an object and then we create drawings from that model, and the drawings are totally up to date with that model. In this lesson, you learned how to create drawings from a model. You learned the basics of viewports and sheet layers. You learned how to annotate viewports. You learned a really quick trick for creating viewports. And you learned how to change the model and update the viewports and why that's so important.